I knew the exact second my father lost control. It was the moment the bank manager stopped listening to him and started listening to me. But to understand why that terrified him, you need to see how we got there. 2 hours earlier, my dad called me out of nowhere. "Get dressed. We're going to the bank," he said, like it wasn't optional, like I still answered to him. I almost said no, almost, but something in his tone, sharp, certain, like he was about to prove a point, made me go. The branch was downtown. Glass walls, marble floors, the kind of place where everything echoes just a little too loud, and people notice everything. He walked in first, didn't hold the door, didn't look back, just expected me to follow, like always. We stood in line for maybe 30 seconds before he started. "You see this place," he said, loud enough for the couple next to us to hear. "This is where real decisions get made, not whatever it is you've been doing with your life." I didn't respond. I never did, not when he used that tone. He turned slightly, just enough to make sure people could see my face. "She's my daughter," he said, half laughing. Though I'm not sure how that happened. No direction, no plan, just wasting time. I felt eyes on me, strangers pretending not to listen, but listening, always listening. Then he leaned in a little closer, like he was about to deliver the final verdict. "She's a failure," he said, clean, simple, practiced, like he'd said it enough times it didn't even feel like an insult anymore, just a fact. And here's the thing, he didn't bring me there by accident. He brought me there to prove it, to show me, to show everyone, that I didn't belong in a place like this. But what he didn't know, what he never bothered to ask, was why I didn't argue anymore, why I stopped defending myself years ago, because while he was busy writing me off, I was building something, quietly, carefully, something that didn't need his approval, or his money, or his name. And as he kept talking, louder now, drawing more attention, I noticed something shift. A man in a suit near the offices, watching, not my father, me, and then he started walking toward us. He did not stop walking until he was right in front of us, measured steps, calm, controlled, the kind of presence that makes a room go quiet without asking it to. My dad noticed him immediately, straightened his posture, adjusted his jacket, his voice shifted, just a little, like it always did when he thought he was speaking to someone important. "Can I help you?" he asked, suddenly polite, suddenly respectful. The man did not answer him, not right away. His eyes moved past my father and landed on me, steady, certain, like he already knew exactly who I was, and in that second, something inside my chest tightened, not fear, not panic, recognition. "Miss Dawson," he said, clear, professional. "We have been expecting you." There was a pause, small, but heavy, like the air itself was waiting. My father let out a short laugh, confused, dismissive. "I think you have the wrong person," he said quickly, too quickly. "She is not." He stopped himself, but the damage was already there. That instinct, to correct, to diminish, to explain me away. The manager did not even look at him. Not once. "Your appointment is ready," he continued, still speaking to me. "If you would like to step into the office, we can finalize everything." Finalize. The word hung there. Quiet, loaded. My father frowned, actually frowned, like the world had just shifted half an inch out of place, and he could not figure out why. "What appointment?" he asked, sharper now, a little edge creeping back into his voice. I did not answer him, not yet. I could feel every pair of eyes around us again, the couple from earlier, the teller behind the counter, even the security guard by the door, all watching, all trying to piece it together. The man in front of me waited, patient, not rushing me, because he did not need to. People like him never do. And that was when I realized something else, something my father had never understood. Power does not raise its voice, it waits. I reached into my bag slowly, deliberately, not to make a scene, but because I knew every second mattered now, every movement, every look. My father shifted beside me. I could feel it, the uncertainty, the first crack. "Emily," he said under his breath, tight, warning. "What is going on?" I pulled out a slim folder, dark blue, edges worn just enough to show it had been handled, used, real, not something thrown together overnight. His eyes dropped to it immediately, searching, calculating, trying to get ahead of something he could not yet see. I opened it, flipped to the page I already knew by memory. Numbers, signatures, official seals, the kind of documents he had spent his whole life respecting, fearing, believing in. I did not show it to him. Not yet. Instead, I looked back at the manager, held his gaze, steady. "I am ready," I said, simple, controlled, and something changed. Not in him, in my father, because for the first time, I was not reacting. I was leading. The manager gave a small nod, almost imperceptible, then stepped slightly to the side, creating space, an invitation. "Right this way," he said, and as I took the first step forward, I heard my father's voice behind me, not loud anymore, not certain, just uncertain. "Emily, what did you do?" I did not turn around, because if I did, he might see it. Not fear, not anger, but the truth he had missed for years, that while he was busy calling me a failure, I had already become something he could not control, and we had not even gotten to the part where he would find out exactly what I was about to sign. I followed him past the glass offices, past the waiting area, into a private room that felt quieter than the rest of the bank, like the noise outside could not reach in here. The door closed behind us with a soft click, and just like that, everything changed. The manager gestured toward a chair, not across from the desk, but beside it, equal position, intentional. "Please have a seat," he said, and again, he said it to me, not to the man who had spent his entire life believing he was the one in control. My father stepped in right behind us, slower this time, hesitant, like he was entering a place he did not fully understand. His eyes moved quickly, scanning the room, the documents, the nameplate on the desk, trying to catch up, trying to regain ground. "I think there has been some kind of misunderstanding," he said, voice tight, controlled, but no longer confident. The manager finally turned his head slightly, just enough to acknowledge him. "There is no misunderstanding, sir," he replied. Calm, neutral, and then his attention returned to me, like my father had already been processed, categorized, dismissed. I placed the folder on the desk, opened it again, this time turning it so it faced him. The manager nodded once, recognizing everything instantly, because of course he did. He had seen it before. "We have prepared the final authorization forms," he said, sliding a set of documents toward me. Thick paper, crisp, official, the kind of paperwork that does not ask questions. It confirms decisions. My father stepped closer, too close, trying to read over my shoulder. "Authorization for what?" he asked, sharper now, the edge back, but thinner, strained. I could feel it, that shift, that imbalance, growing wider with every second. I picked up the pen, rolled it once between my fingers, slow, steady, not stalling, just choosing the moment. "Emily," he said again, louder this time, a warning wrapped in confusion. "What are you signing?" I glanced at him, finally, just for a second, long enough for him to see something he had never seen before. Certainty, not defiance, not anger, certainty. "An account transfer," I said, simple, clean, and his expression changed, not all at once, but in pieces, confusion first, then calculation, then something else, something closer to disbelief. "Whose account?" he asked, quieter now, like he already knew the answer would not be what he wanted. I did not respond immediately. Instead, I turned the first page toward him, just enough, just a glimpse, the account number, the institution seal, and then, the balance. The number sat there, undeniable, not exaggerated, not dramatic, just large enough that it could not be ignored. 6 figures, high, stable, real. I watched his eyes lock onto it, watched the exact moment it registered, the way his posture shifted, shoulders tightening, breath catching just slightly, like his body had reacted before his mind could catch up. "That is not," he started, then stopped, because he did not know how to finish that sentence. It did not fit into the version of me he had built, the one he repeated so often it became truth in his head, the failure, the loss, the bad investment. "It is mine," I said, quietly, not to challenge him, not to impress him, just to state it. And that was the moment everything broke, not loudly, not dramatically, just internally, like something he had relied on for years had finally given out. The manager spoke again, steady as ever. This account has been under her sole ownership and management, he explained, not to me, to my father, like he was catching him up on a story that had already been written. All funds have been verified and cleared. Today is simply the final authorization for consolidation, another word that carried weight, finality, control. My father shook his head slightly, once, twice, like he could physically reject what he was hearing. No, that does not make sense, he muttered, more to himself than anyone else, and I realized something then, something almost quiet. He was not angry. Not yet. He was lost, because for the first time, he was not the one explaining the world. He was the one trying to understand it, and failing. I lowered my gaze to the documents again, lined up the pen with the signature line, paused, just for a breath, and in that pause, I could feel it all, every year, every word, every label he had placed on me, stacking up, leading to this exact second. I signed my name, clean, steady, without hesitation, and as the ink settled into the paper, permanent, irreversible, the manager closed the folder gently, like sealing something far bigger than a transaction. It is done, he said, and my father said nothing at all. Silence does not feel empty, not when it carries weight, and in that room, after the manager said it is done, the silence pressed in, heavy, undeniable. My father did not move, not right away. His eyes stayed on the folder, like if he stared long enough, the numbers might rearrange themselves into something he could understand, something that made sense to him, but they did not. They stayed exactly where they were, solid, real. His voice came back slowly, like it had to travel a long distance to reach the surface. Where did this come from? He asked, not sharp, not accusing, just lost, and that was new, because my father was never lost. He was the one who explained things, who judged, who labeled, who decided what had value and what did not, but now, he was asking me. I leaned back slightly in the chair, not to create distance, but because for the first time, I did not need to lean forward to be heard. I built it, I said, simple, no extra words, no defense, no explanation, just the truth. He blinked, once, twice, like the sentence itself did not process. Built. What does that even mean? He said, a little stronger now, trying to regain something, anything, control. I exhaled slowly, not out of frustration, just timing. It means while you were deciding I had no direction. I was working, while you were telling everyone I had no plan. I was executing one, and while you were calling me a loss. I was creating something you never thought I could. His jaw tightened. I could see it, that shift from confusion to resistance, because accepting this meant rewriting everything he believed about me, and people like him, they do not rewrite easily. With what money? He pushed. You had nothing. There it was, the assumption, the foundation of everything. I shook my head slightly, not dismissive, just correcting. I had enough, I said, and the manager, quiet until now, added just one sentence, measured, precise. Initial deposits were modest, but the growth trajectory was significant, another word that did not need to be loud to land. My father looked at him, then back at me, and something clicked, not fully, but enough. Investments, he said slowly, testing the word, like it did not belong in the same sentence as my name. I did not nod. I did not confirm. I just let him sit with it, because that realization had to be his, not mine. He took a step back, small, but visible, creating space between us, like he needed distance to think, to breathe, to recalculate. That is not possible, he muttered, but it did not sound like certainty anymore. It sounded like hope, like he needed it to be impossible, because if it was not, then everything he had said, every time he called me a failure, every time he dismissed me, every time he chose to believe I was less, it would all collapse, and people like him, they do not fear being wrong, they fear what being wrong says about them. I stood up slowly, the chair sliding back just enough to make a soft sound, grounding the moment, real, present. I gathered the folder, closed it, neat, controlled, no rush. The manager stepped slightly aside again, giving me a clear path to the door. But before I moved, I turned back to my father, not out of obligation, not out of habit, but because this part mattered. You asked me earlier what I did, I said, my voice steady, calm. I stopped waiting for you to see value in me, and I created it myself. He opened his mouth, like he wanted to respond, to argue, to say something that would restore the version of reality he was comfortable with, but nothing came out. Because there was nothing left to hold on to. No label, no assumption, no control, just facts, and facts do not argue, they exist. I walked past him, not brushing against him, not rushing, just moving forward, and for the first time, he did not stop me, did not call after me, did not correct me. He just stood there, in the middle of a room where he thought he had power, realizing he never had it where it mattered. As I reached the door, my hand paused on the handle, just for a second, not hesitation, just awareness, because I knew something he did not. This was not the part that would stay with him, not the number, not the signature, not even the fact that he was wrong. It was what came next, because what he still did not understand, what he had not even begun to realize, was that this account, this moment, this shift, was only a fraction of what I had built. And he was about to find out exactly how much more there was. I stepped out of the office, and the noise of the bank came rushing back in, conversations, footsteps, printers humming, like nothing had changed, like the world had not just shifted under my feet, but for me, everything was different now, and I could feel it. Not loud, not overwhelming, just settled behind me. I heard the door open again, slower this time, heavier. My father walked out a few seconds later, and for the first time in my life, he did not walk ahead of me. He stopped, just a step behind, like he was not sure where he stood anymore. Emily, he said, my name, softer than I had ever heard it from him. No edge, no judgment, just uncertain. I turned slightly, not fully, just enough to acknowledge him. He hesitated, like he had to choose his next words. Carefully, something he had never done with me before. How long, he started, then stopped, recalibrated. How long has this been going on? I looked at him, really looked this time, at the man who had spent years measuring value in numbers, returns, outcomes, and realizing he had never once asked me that question before, not about anything that mattered. Long enough, I said, and that was all, because the exact timeline did not matter. What mattered was that it happened, without him, without his approval, without his understanding. He nodded slowly, like he was trying to accept an answer that did not give him control. His eyes moved around the bank, taking everything in again, but differently now, like he was seeing a place he thought he understood, through a completely new lens. And this, he gestured vaguely, toward the office behind us, toward everything that had just happened. This is just one account? I could hear it, the calculation starting again, the need to quantify, to reduce, to make it something he could measure. I did not answer right away. I let the question sit, let him feel the space around it. Then I gave him the truth. Not all of it, just enough. Yes, I said, and watched as that single word landed, heavier than anything else I could have said, because it implied everything, that this was not the whole picture, not even close. He exhaled, slow, controlled, but it did not hide the shift, the realization building under the surface. Emily, he tried again, and this time, there was something else in his voice, something unfamiliar, not authority, not even confusion, something closer to respect, but unfinished, uncertain, like he did not know how to hold it yet. Why did you not tell me? There it was, the question that would have meant everything years ago, asked too late. I held his gaze for a second, then another, not to challenge him, just to let him sit in it. Because you already decided who I was, I said, calm, even. And you were not interested in being wrong. He looked away first, quick, subtle, but it happened, and that was enough. A moment later, he cleared his throat, straightened his jacket again, a habit, something familiar to hold on to. Well, he said, forcing a small nod. You should have. I mean, I could have helped. Guided you. The words sounded right, but they did not feel right. not even to him. I could tell, because halfway through, his voice lost its certainty. I shook my head slightly, not dismissive, just honest. No, I said. You would have tried to control it, and then it would not be mine anymore. That landed, deeper than the number, deeper than the account, because it was not about money, it was about ownership, identity, control. He did not respond this time. He just stood there, absorbing it, piece by piece, like someone rebuilding a structure they thought was solid, only to realize the foundation had never been there. I adjusted the strap of my bag, small movement, grounding, then started toward the exit, the glass doors ahead catching the light, reflecting everything behind me as I walked. I could feel it again, the shift in attention, people looking, not openly, but enough to notice, enough to remember. I reached the doors, pushed them open, stepped out into the afternoon air, cool, clear, real, and for a moment, I just stood there, letting it settle, letting everything that had happened actually land. Behind me, the doors opened again. My father stepped out, slower, more measured. He stopped beside me, not too close, not distant, just beside. Like we were two people standing in the same place, not one leading and one following. Emily, he said again, and this time, it sounded different, not like a command, not like a correction, just my name. I turned to him, fully now, and waited. He took a breath, like he was about to say something important, something that mattered. But then, he hesitated, because he did not know how to say it, not yet, not in a way that fit the version of himself he had always been. I did not. He started, then stopped, shook his head slightly, like even he knew that whatever came next would not be enough. I watched him, calm, steady, not expecting anything, not needing anything, and that was the difference. I did not need his approval anymore. I did not need his validation. I had already built something that existed without it, and he could feel that, even if he could not fully understand it yet. A car passed by, the sound breaking the moment just enough, grounding it again, real, present. I shifted my weight slightly, ready to leave, to move forward, and that was when he said it, not loud, not dramatic, just honest. What else is there? I paused, just for a second, then looked at him, really looked, and gave him the smallest hint of what was coming. More than you think, I said, and then I turned and walked away, knowing that what he had just seen was only the beginning. The city noise followed me for a few steps, then faded, not because it got quieter, but because my mind had already moved somewhere else, forward, always forward. I did not look back, not at the bank, not at my father, because I knew if I turned around now, it would pull me into a version of myself I had already left behind, and I was not going back. My phone buzzed in my hand, one vibration, then another. I glanced down, unknown number. I already knew who it was before I answered. "This is Emily," I said, calm, steady. "Miss Dawson," the voice on the other end replied, familiar, controlled, the same tone from the office. "Everything has been processed, but there is one more item we should discuss, preferably in person." I slowed my steps slightly, not stopping, just adjusting. "I thought everything was finalized," I said, not suspicious, just precise. "It is," he confirmed. "But there are additional accounts connected to the structure, ones that will require your authorization as well." Additional accounts. There it was, the part my father had only started to glimpse and had not yet understood. I exhaled quietly, not surprised, just acknowledging the next move. "How many?" I asked. Simple, direct. There was a brief pause, not hesitation, calculation. "3," he said, and then, just slightly. For now, I almost smiled, not because it was funny, but because it confirmed something I had built long before this moment. This was never about one account, never about one number. It was a system, layered, intentional, designed to grow without needing attention, without needing validation. "I will come by later today," I said, and ended the call before anything else could be added, because I did not need more details. I already knew what came next. I reached my car, unlocked it, slid into the driver's seat, and for a second, just a second, I let myself sit there, hands on the wheel. Engine still off, not overwhelmed, not emotional, just aware, because moments like this, they do not come often. The exact second when everything shifts, when the version of you that people believed in disappears, and the real version, the one you built in silence, takes its place. My phone buzzed again, this time a name, one I had not seen on my screen in months, my father. I stared at it for a moment, watching it ring once, twice, 3 times, and I realized something. This was the first time he was calling me, not to correct, not to instruct, not to judge, just to reach. I let it ring one more time, then answered. Yes, I said, no greeting, no softness, just presence. There was a pause on the other end, longer than usual, like he was adjusting to a version of me he did not recognize yet. Emily, he said, and again, my name sounded different, not heavy, not sharp, just uncertain. I have been thinking, he continued, slow, careful, about what you said, about everything. I did not respond. I did not fill the silence, because this time, he needed to. I might have misjudged, he added, the words incomplete, but close enough. I leaned back slightly in the seat, eyes forward, not closing, not softening, just listening. There are opportunities, he said, shifting again, searching for familiar ground. Connections I have, people you could meet, if you are serious about this. There it was, the instinct, to step back in, to guide, to shape, to control, even now, even after everything. I shook my head slightly, even though he could not see it. I am already serious, I said, calm, final, and there was a silence on the line, not empty, just accepted, because for the first time, he heard it, not as defiance, but as fact. Right, he said quietly, and I could almost hear it, the shift, the recalibration, the slow realization that he was no longer part of the decision-making process. Not here, not anymore. Then, I suppose, I will have to catch up, he added, and that was the closest he had ever come to saying it. Not apology, not yet, but recognition. I let a small breath out, not relief, just acknowledgement. You can try, I said, not dismissive, not cold, just honest, and I ended the call, not because I did not want to hear more, but because there was nothing else that needed to be said, not right now. I started the engine, the sound grounding me again, pulling me back into motion, into what came next, because this moment, this shift, it was not the finish line, it was the entry point. I pulled out into traffic, merging smoothly, the city moving around me, unaware, unchanged, and yet, everything was different. My phone sat beside me, quiet now, but I knew it would not stay that way. Because once people start seeing value where they ignored it before, they do not stop. They adjust, they reach, they try to reposition themselves closer to it. And my father, he had just begun to understand that, but what he still did not know, what he had not even begun to realize, was that the system I built, the accounts, the structure, the control, it was only one layer, and very soon, he would see the rest, not in a bank, not behind a desk, but somewhere he never expected, where numbers alone would not be enough to explain it. I pulled into the underground garage just as the afternoon light started to fade, concrete pillars, low ceiling, the kind of place where sound echoes just enough to remind you that you are alone. I parked in my usual spot, same space I had paid for myself, every month, quietly, without telling anyone. I turned off the engine, and for a moment, I just sat there, listening to the ticking of the cooling engine, steady, controlled, like everything else in my life had become. My phone buzzed again, but this time, it was not a call, it was a message, short, direct, from the same number. Conference room B. For 30 p.m., documents ready, no greeting, no extra words, just information. I checked the time. For 12, enough. I stepped out of the car, locked it, and headed toward the elevator. My reflection followed me in the mirrored walls, composed, calm, unrecognizable to the version of me my father still held on to. The elevator doors opened with a soft chime, and as they closed, I caught myself thinking, not about what had already happened, but about what was coming. Because the next layer, it was different. Not just numbers, not just accounts. This was structure, control, influence. The doors opened onto the upper floor, quiet, carpeted, the kind of space designed for decisions that do not happen in public. I walked down the hallway, steady pace, no hesitation, and stopped in front of the door marked B. I did not knock. I opened it. Inside, two people were already waiting. The manager from earlier, and another man, older, silver hair, tailored suit, the kind of presence that did not introduce itself. It did not need to. He stood as I entered, slight nod, measured. "Miss Dawson," he said, voice low, precise. "We have been reviewing the structure, again. That word, layered, intentional." I took the seat across from them, not asking, not waiting, just stepping into the role that had already been set. The manager slid a new set of documents across the table, thicker this time, more detailed. "These are the holding entities connected to your primary account," he explained.